the other thing is signs go away. They might be there, but we don't see them anymore. But this moving sign of these safety cones really makes people think about, hey, I've got to be safe around this silage pile. And maybe that translates to their other parts of their job too. So.
Welcome to this episode of the Dairy Podcast Show. I'm joined today by Connie Pierson Kuber from Conner AgriScience. I've had the opportunity to do a couple events with Connie before, so I'm pretty excited for our conversation today. Connie comes from Minnesota. She has a bachelor's of science degree from the University of Minnesota in ag journalism, and a certificate of corporate communications from the University of Southern California. So I always find that Connie is a great communicator when it comes to understanding the science, but also helping producers and industry professionals understand the science as well. Connie says that her biggest job is a mom, and that's ongoing even though her kids are all grown up. She's been an ag communicator and marketing since graduating from the University of Minnesota in 1982. She worked for Worldwide Sires fresh out of college, and after starting a family, she wrote freelance for domestic as well as international dairy trade journals. Currently, she is working on furthering dairy and beef farmers' awareness that efficient silage is also money-saving, longer-lasting, of better quality, and safer. She's especially interested in getting this message to dairy beef farmers, as silage doesn't know if it's being fed to beef cows or dairy cows. The money, lifestyle, and life savings benefits are there either way. And Connie, it doesn't talk about it anywhere in your bio, but you and your husband started your company together. I think you said 26 years ago. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that, a little bit about what your company is and what you guys work with?
Sure. Thanks, Gail. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And I always enjoy talking to people about all kinds of different things. So I'm happy to be here. Conner AgriScience started out, like you said, about 26 years ago. And Ron and I have a background in a lot of different things. We make a great team. Ron has been in sales all his life with advertising space, getting out of Cal Poly, to working with Allflex ear tag. And then we had an import a company for a while with some people that were involved in Worldwide Sires. And then we've been in business, like you said, 26 years ago. We started Conner. It was Conner Marketing at the time, and 6 years ago we changed it to Conner AgriScience just because it reflected more about what we were trying to do for our customers. My background, like you said, is ag journalism, and I'm a communicator. When I was in college, my dream was to be able to communicate what dairy was to to our consumers. And if I always have to chuckle that if I had Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all that kind of stuff back then, that's exactly what I was hoping to do. And I had some students with me, Jeannie Behrens Annexted, who also wrote for Dairy Today for several years. Her and I were classmates, and we talk about that often when we get to see each other. But anyway, so yeah, Conner AgriScience, we passed the 7-year fail mark for self-started businesses. We do complement each other well. Ron does what he does very well. I try to do what I do as well as I can. And that is, we take care of our customers first. That's our focus, and trying to find new things to bring to them. So, silage film, we got into silage with Lalamond and Viatal at the time with Dr. Bob Charlie, and really enjoyed working with the science of silage. And we had introduced oxygen barrier film to the Western United States, and then had some conflicts with our manufacturer in where it was going to be made. So we decided to go ahead and brand our own film. And so Seal Pro is our own company's film. But, aside from the film, my real interests lie in teaching people about silage safety and how to be careful. And that's not only making better silage, but also behaving around it like it's the scary thing that it can be.
Yeah, I know I've seen your coloring book, and I think a lot of people have seen the coloring book before, and the silage base is the monster, right? And I think we get comfortable around it because we're used to it, but that doesn't mean that accidents don't still happen. And I think we'll talk about that probably in a little bit. But before we kind of dive into the meat and potatoes, you're from Minnesota, but you're out in California right now. And I'm not sure when people are going to be listening to this, but as of right now, you guys are dealing out there with a lot of flooding. And that's impacting your dairy farms out there quite a bit. Can you give us an update on what's going on with that?
Sure. So people, unless you live in this area or you have a broader knowledge of this area, don't maybe understand that California's water delivery system is a network of reservoirs in the mountains that and canals that flow through the valley of the Central California and Northern California as well. But the thing is that we've had a drought, obviously, for many, many years here, and our ground is pretty tough. It's there is a hard pan of clay underneath it, anywhere from like 8 to 20 feet down below the surface of the soil, and so we have a problem with that just in the drainage situation. And all the rain that we've got obviously saturated all that ground, and we have a lot of standing water around. Then the storms that came through that really caused the trouble were warm storms. We had all this snow in the mountains, and we rely on that for snow melt into the reservoirs and then the canals on down. But when these warm storms came through, the snow in the mountains started melting. And it just becomes a big balancing act of how much water do you keep in the reservoir, how much do you dare to put it in so that those dams hold, because they are all older. California has not built any new water storage for several years. And so it just becomes kind of a huge challenge to manage exactly how much water needs to be put where. And so that's the situation we have. There are farms who have had to evacuate cows. But the real critical thing is, with our feed prices being so high already, we have lost a lot of crop ground for feeding cattle, as well as in our tree fruits and nuts. And so that is really going to be probably the longest lasting challenge for these dairy farmers here in California, is the price of the feed and just the availability of it.
So a lot of farmers going to be trying to purchase in feeds into California then. What's plan B?
Well, that's what's going to happen. And most of these farmers are on the west side of 99, the freeway that runs right up down the middle of the San Joaquin Valley. And they're just to the west side of that. We just drove down to LA a couple weekends ago, and the water that's running through is just really incredible. We've never seen water like that before. So it's could be interesting.
Yeah, like you said, we're so used to hearing about drought out in California. It's hopefully someday you're able to find a happy medium there.
Well, right. Yeah, I think we all prayed to God for rain, and he said, okay, here it is, have it.
Maybe a little less next time.
Yeah. But, we can't be picky. So here we are.
I guess that kind of leads into, winter forage crops. Those are progressing right now, or would be, depending on the flooding status out there. What's going on with your winter forages? What are those looking like right now? Or are you able to get any harvested? What's the situation looking like right there?
Yeah. The crop looks really good because of the water that we've had. And, but there again, like you said, the can we get into the field? That's the problem. And so I think farmers, we've had a lot of wind the last few days. That's helped dry things out a little bit. But because that ground is so saturated, very, to a very far depth, it's going to be a challenge to get in there and get that together. So we don't have a lot going on right now yet, unless you've got ground that is able to be driven on. But once that ground dries up enough, it's going to be gangbusters to get that.
Is grazing going to be an option for any of those forages? No,
I don't. We're not grazers here.
Well, let's move in and kind of talk about what I think of when I think of you, which is silage safety. I know we've done a little bit of work together on the extension side with silage safety, and you've already talked about how important that is. You've kind of taken over the Keith Bolson Silage Safety Foundation, or I don't know if taken over is the right word, but you picked up the mantle and been carrying on a lot of that work. And I know I still have some caution tape and some orange safety cones from the last workshop that we did together. So why don't we move on and kind of talk about that? What are some of your top 3, or I won't limit you to a number, what are some of your top tips that you have for keeping employees safe and their families?
Sure. Yes. Well, and I want to clarify too that Keith, Ron and I learned a lot from Keith Bolson, not only safety, but how to make and manage drive over piles and bunkers, and how to make. Keith always said, safe silage is efficient silage, and we kind of carry that on. And also the board of directors of the Bolson Silage Safety Foundation are all very active in trying to promote his messages. And we have some exciting things happening with the Bolson Foundation that we're not quite ready to talk about yet, but we're excited to develop programs in his memory. And so that's kind of where we're at with that. The top 3, one of my first top tips is the safety cone idea. And I talk about this all the time. I saw this on a large farm in Minnesota. What you do, we all know that you should stay 3 times the height of the pile away from the silage pile. So just for example, if you've got a 10-foot high silage pile, which is small compared to most everybody's, but just for numbers. So if you have a 10-foot high silage pile, you should stay away from it 30 feet, right? Okay. So my idea is that you would take your people out to the silage pile, and that's another thing. Who needs to know this? Just about everybody needs to know this. Everybody who works on the dairy, not just the person who's feeding. Because that person has been taught how to be on that face safely and to be careful. But you take them all out to the edge of the pile, like on this pile here, it would be right about there, and you'd figure out, okay, so if say this pile is 10 feet high, so I'm going to walk out with my people 30 feet. Because that's a safe place to be. It's not going to fall on you, that kind of thing. And we've got a pile of safety cones. So the first person puts that safety cone down at 30 feet. Then they all walk out. It's such a simple thing. Everybody walks out and places their safety cone at 30 feet. And before you know it, you've got a line of safety cones, and that's the no-go zone. Nobody goes in there except that feeder. And so that becomes a visual of, hey, this is a reminder that we're not going to go near that silage pile. Then it's the job of that feeder to move that line of cones every time he or she takes feet off of that face. And that's a reminder to that person to be safe around silage. We can put up signs all day long, but some of these piles and bunkers get so long that we put this sign up on the telephone post next to the face. Before you know it, the face has moved, and nobody sees the sign anymore. And the other thing is signs go away. There's they might be there, but we don't see them anymore. But this moving sign of these safety cones really makes people think about, hey, I've got to be safe around this silage pile. And maybe that translates to their other parts of their job too. So that's one. Another one is high visibility clothing, whether it's t-shirts or sweatshirts, or my favorite is safety vests, just because they can be left at the farm. They don't have to be taken home and forgotten. But what I suggest is that people take their safety vests, issue a couple of them per person who's going to be working out there. And you can do this as families too. It's not just these big dairies with 25, 50, 100 employees. It's just on family farms as well. So have everybody write their name in the neck of the safety vest so that they know whose it is. But then you take that Sharpie marker and you write the names of 3 people who expect you to come home today. And when you put that on, you think of those 3 people that are expecting you to walk through that door tonight when you get home. And maybe that will help you remember to be a little safer. It's all these memory things that we need to interrupt the forgetting curve. So there's a German psychoanalyst who had determined that there's a forgetting curve. When we have a silage safety meeting, which is my next tip, is to have silage safety meetings more often. And I suggest have a safety meeting once a week, even if it's for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be any big, long production, but have that meeting. And because you're interrupting that forgetting curve. After 1 hour, you will forget 55% of what you hear.
Yeah, especially for me, a teacher.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And that's why you repeat things in your curriculum. Right. So 55% is lost after an hour. After 24 hours, 66% of it's lost. And after 6 days, you lose 75% of what you have told somebody. So in a week's time, they're going to forget 75% of what you said. So that's kind of scary. So if you can have these safety meetings more often, and you don't have to talk about silage, obviously, every time. You could talk about milk parlor safety, or whatever it is that you've got going, and you can also tailor that to the time of the year that you're in, or with what's going on, the season, whatever. But have that safety meeting and commit to it once a week. So the coloring book is a great way our coloring book is a great way to talk about these issues with your employees and your family. And it's a very short, easy to understand.
Yeah. And easy for little kids too, to kind of, because like you said, you get small people running around the dairy, and there's a lot of, we grew up in maybe not the safest of production systems, right? But those are obviously precious cargo, and you want to make sure that they're staying safe at all times.
Right. You don't want to be that farm that has to deal with the PR problem of somebody got hurt or killed on your farm, and that it takes a lot of time, it takes effort, it takes capital away from doing positive things.
Well, and I think when you put safety as a top priority like that, it communicates to your employees that you care about them.
Exactly.
So I think it really ties in with a lot of the issues that we see around labor and labor retention, and making sure that we're caring for the people that work for us. You're telling them, yeah, is it annoying? Yes, sometimes it can be, but it's kind of reiterating that, we care about you, we care about your safety and your livelihood. And we want you to make sure that you're getting home to the people that are important to you.
Sure. Right. It makes a huge impact. One of the first things that we talk about when we go meet with our customers is we ask them how their family is, because that's, when it all boils down to it, our families and people who are special to us in our lives are the most important things that we need to think about when we're talking about silage safety or any other kind of safety as well.
Well, it makes it really easy too if you have, especially with the safety vest idea, if you have a branded safety vest or if you all use the same, like, similar look, it makes it really easy to spot, the people who are there, who belong, who work there, and then the people who are visiting or wandered on or whatever else. And I know for me, I love using them when we do some of our farm visits for class. I make all of my students wear their safety vests, and they roll their eyes at it a little bit, but it's really helpful for me to be able to spot, like, okay, I'm looking for so-and-so. I see that bright yellow safety vest over there, so I know they're okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, and take that further. When you're the owner of a farm or you're the manager of a dairy farm or feedlot, and you see somebody, like you said, that does not have a vest on, they do not belong. And so they need to be addressed and see what they're up to. So it's safety, high visibility clothing, and whatever form you want, whatever's easiest for you. It takes care of a lot of problems. And the other thing is when we're driving around with, sometimes I go to these dairies and I just stay in my car because these unloaders are running around and tractors are running around. They're trying to get cows fed, and you can't expect them to slow down for you. And when they come whipping around a corner and they don't see you, they may not see you at all because of how their cab is set up on their vehicle. So
yeah, you're looking out for yourself. But I like the mirrors too. I love going onto a farm and seeing the mirrors set up so you can see around corners. And so that's another, maybe not top 3, but that's another safety tip that I really appreciate when I spot that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Great idea.
Yeah, I think especially, I love like your regular meetings and the moving of the silage code things. And I think simple things like that, it doesn't have to necessarily be, those exact, actions, but making sure that it's something that provides a reminder every time you do it, because we get so used to, especially cows love consistency, cows love routine, but humans, when we fall into those, routine and consistent patterns, a lot of times it can be easy for us to get complacent. So those little things like that can really kind of shake us out of that complacency and remind us, like, cutting corners, even if it's, saving you a few extra minutes here isn't always productive in the long run.
Right. No, I agree. Absolutely.
I think another thing that ties in to silage safety, and this plays not just with, well, it plays, I guess, into the other side of your business with the science of silage. A well-packed silage pile is a safe silage pile, is a safer silage pile, I should say. Are there practices that, they kind of play off in two ways, in the silage safety side, but also the higher quality silage?
Right. Well, just, we really like to have our customers start with a harvest plan. I mean, and you can start thinking about this now. No harvest year is the same, but it's important to start out with looking at what you've got right now out there, what you're feeding, what happened, how it went. And this is the result of what you did last year. So first of all, look at what you've got that you're feeding out. And then as you get closer, work with your nutritionist or your veterinarian or whoever it is that you consult with on your feeds, and make some goals, set some goals for yourself. You can kind of look ahead to see about when you might be harvesting. Get together if you're large enough that you hire somebody to do it, to your chopping for you or in your packing for you. Get together with them, find out what their capabilities are this year, what they have to offer you as far as pack tractors and that kind of thing. And then talk about the 3 things, the dry matters that we're gonna go for, the kernel processing, question, hey, are you set to go on the kernel processor? And here's what would happen last year. What are we going to do this year to make this even better? And your chop length, make sure that that's all ready, that the knives are ready to go, all that kind of thing. And then, and don't forget to include your covering and how are we going to cover this so that we aren't sitting there with a pile or a bunker already made and say, well, gee, I think we need to get some silage plastic. Think ahead, shop ahead. But we recommend, Ron is the guy that does all of our mathematical. People can call him and ask him, hey, I've got to feed this many cows. I'm feeding this in my ration, and this is how big do I need to make my pile? All that he works with people on that kind of thing. How many pack tractors? How many choppers are you going to have? All that kind of stuff that you have to figure out. And all this figuring sounds like a lot of work, and people say, oh, I've been making silage for 25 years, 15 years, whatever. I don't need to think about that, all that kind of stuff. But like I said, every year is different. And something that we try to stress too is try to keep track of what is happening so that when you get to this time next year, you can look at that pile and say, well, my dry matter was X. And here's where we figured out that we needed to adjust the kernel processor about making this pile. And so that we can document, this is what happened, this is what worked, this is what didn't work. So we always keep trying to get better. We know that silage will never be perfect, ever. It won't ever be exactly perfect. But the more we document, the more we think about and plan ahead, the better the chances are for that to happen. And then, of course, using barrier film, that's it's been proven time and time again. Use a barrier film that is proven, that has been tested correctly, and that we know works. And use tires to cover those piles and keep that face protected. And in doing that, I mean on the edge of that the silage plastic, like that there's a line of tires there that is not allowing air to get underneath that plastic. And so let's make sure that we've got enough tires, we've got the right size and quantity of film to cover. Do that all ahead of time so that, harvest is hectic enough. Let's do that ahead of time so that we know what our next step is, and we don't have to make decisions in the moment of a heated moment. So we also talk about inoculants. Try to guess what your needs are going to be, because we all know there's different inoculants that do different things for different situations. And so have a good relationship with your inoculant people too. Something else that goes along with the silage safety thing, but also goes along with making silage, is to take care of yourself. We don't talk about that enough. Make sure that the people who are working in your harvest are hydrated. Make sure that they are eating well. And I know that there are people who live on dairies, wives and husbands both, that are in charge of making sure that everybody's fed. And so make sure you're fed, rest as much as you can, and try to, and the nice thing about it is if you've done all this planning ahead of time and you know what you're kind of up against, rest becomes easier because you're not rolling a lot of stuff around in your head wondering. So that's kind of what we try to talk about.
Well, we're rolling into, when we're recording this, I should say, it's the first week of April. When people are listening to this, it may or may not be in spring anymore. But so as we're kind of looking into the harvest season, the planting season getting started, what are some things that we should be keeping in mind right now? What are some of the things that producers should be working on right now as they're looking at the planting season starting?
Well, as planting season goes, we're looking at well, out here in the West, we're looking at figuring out what water deliveries are going to look like, what our needs for the fertilizers and all the different things we're going to have to add to that crop. We're going to be looking, like I said, at what we've got in the pile or bunker now to see where we're at with the quality and the quantity. There's a lot we can do to protect the yield of that corn, and try to make that as best as we can. I am not an agronomist, so I can't tell you a whole lot of growing tips. I'd refer you to agronomists for that. But I think that the planning for the harvest, keeping that in mind, is important, and just remember this excitement. That's one thing, is remember this excitement and this positivity of, hey, this is exciting. We get to plant corn. And then remember that when you're covering your silage at the very end, because by the time they get to our stage of the game where we're covering with film, they're going, oh my gosh, I'm so sick of this. Let's just get this over with. But remember this positive energy that you have going here, and enjoy the whole process.
Well, that's so important too. We talk about this a lot, that silage is, that's the cornerstone of, for most of us in the North America, that's the cornerstone of what your rations are going to be built on. And making sure you get that right is going to pay off in huge dividends all year, not just during planting and harvest. So you don't want to be kicking yourself in the foot or kicking yourself 14 months from now because you didn't hold yourself to higher expectations.
Right. And that's really where the planning comes in, is if you plan ahead, know what you're doing, know your options. It's never going to be perfect, but get as close as you can to perfect as you can. So,
well, and I appreciate that you say that. Of course, silage is never going to be perfect. Like, there's always going to be something that's just not, a little bit of oxygen got in here or there, or whatever it is. But I feel like, and I don't know if you feel the same way, I feel like in the past, several years, our tolerance for imperfections has really declined. I don't know the last time I've been onto a farm that doesn't have some sort of defacer, for example. And so I feel like our understanding of best practices and our tolerance for less than highest quality corn silage has really declined as an industry.
Absolutely. The dairy industry is to be congratulated for the way that it has taken this to seriously, and really has done what they can with what they have, and they have invested in the education, in the resources, in the materials, and they are to be congratulated. We talked about in my bio that we're working with beef feedlots as well, and the beef industry in general has a ways to go. They haven't embraced this silage making and managing like the dairy people have, but they understand that, and there are some feedlots that are now doing a really wonderful job, because they look at it and they always say, well, beef cattle, they feed them anything, but there is degradation to that rumen mat that happens when you feed bad silage, and a dairy cow will tell you immediately when she's had something that's gone upside down in her rumen. But beef cattle are out there in the feedlot. They're laying around in the sun. They're, did they eat? How much did they eat today? Well, I don't know how much they ate. And now the feedlot industry also has tools that it can use to track those animals and see where they're at and see how much time they've spent at the bunk or laying down or whatever. And our larger feedlots have really embraced those kinds of technologies. So we look forward to working with them, just like we have with the dairy farmers, to help them do a better job, and to show them that the return on the investment of doing all these things is wonderful. It's especially with the prices as high as they are. the inputs are, yes, it's a bill that you pay. However, the benefits that you get out of taking good care of your silage is they're so much more than what that bill is.
Yeah, I think we have a tendency sometimes to think homegrown forages are free, and they are absolutely not. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I agree. I've seen that attitude kind of shift in a lot of dairy producers and also beef producers. I don't want to just pick on beef producers, but I think you're right that they're a little bit behind the practicalities of it.
But we go to the NCBA meeting every year. We go to the Nebraska Cattlemen meeting. We've been to up in Alberta at a beef meeting up there, and I love those people. They are salt of the earth, and they'll question you all day long, and good for them. That's what they need to do. And it's so fun to see the light kind of go on in their brains, and when you talk to them for a while, and they'll think about it for a while, but they're coming along. They're going to do just fine, and I'm very proud of the beef feedlot producers that we work with that have really done a great job.
Yeah, well, with feed prices what they are right now, I don't think producers have a lot of options to be able to cut corners anymore. So
and I think all of us in the industry of silage are happy to help people. We sometimes get looked at as that darn film we got to buy to put on, but we Ron and I offer a whole lot more than just the film, and we try to teach people how to do a better job with a lot of other things, because it is a marathon. Harvesting is a marathon, and we try to help them finish strong.
Well, I want to switch gears a little bit here. I know something that you and I kind of talk about every once in a while is women in the dairy industry and the role that women play. I'm excited that I get to talk to you today about this because this is fresh in my mind. Like I said, we're recording this first week of April, so I just got back from the National Dairy Challenge this past weekend and took a couple vans full of students, and I had 2 men on the team. And the rest, so out of the 16 people that we brought, there were, it was a 1-to-8 ratio of men to women. And we kept getting some comments when we'd stop places that, oh, I've heard that there's a lot more women in your universities now studying dairy science, and now I can see it. And I also got some questions from my female students on the way back about, why hasn't this caught up in industry yet? You look at industry professionals, and there's not as many women, it seems like, in some of those industry roles. Maybe that'll catch up. Maybe, I hope, because we're producing, I can tell you from firsthand experience, we're training a lot of really top-notch future professionals out of our universities right now who happen to be female. So what's been your experience? I know you've been in this industry for a while as a woman, and what are some of the roles that you think women play in particular and challenges that we have?
Well, I think that, there used to be a cigarette ad, and I can't remember who it was, that it said, "We've come a long way, baby." And boy, have we.
I don't even remember the last time I've seen a cigarette ad.
I know. The Marlboro Man is long gone. Yeah. But yeah, so I know when I was talking about Jeannie and I graduating from the U of M, and back in those days, I went to Worldwide Sires straight out of college, and I was lucky that I went there because it was a company of people who really, all the salesmen were salesmen. They were all men. But shortly after I had been there, a woman from the PR department, Ginny Barker, was promoted to be a saleswoman, and so I was lucky to have to work in that kind of a company for a lot of reasons besides just that. But communications when I was in college was a woman's world as far as ag goes, and And I think that we've come a long way and like you said, there are more and more women who are involved in the science side of things, who are getting practical knowledge as well as they become, they get their masters, they get their PhDs, they do research. They're very incredibly intelligent people, and I think that that's important that we talk about the people who to my knowledge, dairy has never set aside and said, well, these programs are only for women. That's just not been a thing. Women have on their own, in their own right, developed their stature of where they're at. Um, there's it's been, have we met with some opposition or some prejudice towards who we are as women? Sure, we have. But I think that those of us who have lived through this for a while now realize that we just can't let that get to us, and that there are plenty of people, men and women both, who just want to do what's right for the dairy industry, and those are the women who really have come a long way. I know that at World Dairy Expo at the Dairy Shrine dinner, they present scholarships, and there's like it was the odds that the same kind of odds that you had on your dairy challenge team are apparent in the winners of those contests. Of those scholarships, women all over the place. And so I think that the comment by one of your students about when are we going to catch up? I think that we are catching up. I mean, I know a lot of women in industry that have incredible responsibility and jobs that are super jobs, and they're I don't. Is there discrimination? Sure, there is. We're all human beings. I mean, we discriminate against men too, as women. It just happens
we
here.
have our biases. Yep.
At Counter Agri-Science, it happens, every once in a while. But we
just like corn silage, people aren't perfect either.
Exactly, and that's okay. And as long as we recognize that people are people, and we all have strengths and weaknesses. It doesn't matter what sex we are or what we're doing. And so I think that women definitely are a strong part of the dairy industry, and I've in talking about the beef world, there are some really strong women in the beef world. So
yeah, I know that there's, not every company has a work culture that's friendly to women. And I think about those companies every once in a while, and I think they're going to run out of people to hire here pretty soon, because our animal science departments, and it's not just where I work at Iowa State, it's all over the country. It's a field that's really drawing women to it for whatever reason. And vet schools, it's even more pronounced. The male to female ratio. So gonna have to start working on recruiting more mentor programs pretty soon. It's a little bit turning things on their heads the way it's been historically. So
exactly. As long as we get the best people working for the industry, that's what we need to do is find the best people, and doesn't matter what their skin color is, what their gender is, whatever. It's as long as we keep that focus, we're going to be fine.
And honestly, I think a lot of I don't know if I want to call it discrimination or not, but there's another ism, I think, in the animal science world, and that's where you're from. Did you grow up on a farm? Did you grow up in the city? Did you grow up in the suburbs? And a lot of my really top-notch students who take off and are doing great things didn't come from dairy farms. And I've got also a lot of great students who did come from dairy farms. So I don't know if there's a super strong correlation between good students and good future professionals, whether or not they grew up on a farm.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Sometimes I think that people who didn't grow up and don't have those things that are in our minds that we learned as kids, they see a broader picture, and especially as we move towards technology and or better, more complex technologies, and ideas about looking at silage or any other product on the farm for what it is, and what it could be. And I think that's true, is that your background, sometimes it's a hindrance and sometimes it's a help. So there's room for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. I think having a combination of people with different backgrounds is incredibly important when you're working together as a team.
Right, right. And that goes along with different cultures as well. It's not just a California thing anymore to have people of different cultures working on your dairy farm, and what richness and that brings to the whole culture of dairy is very important.
Well, before we wrap up, kind of along the same lines, I know you're very involved with the Dairy Girl Network, and you mentioned that a little bit about your involvement there. Do you want to talk about what the Dairy Girl Network is and what your involvement has been there with that organization?
Sure. Dairy Girl Network, as much as I said that, women and men, we all work together and that kind of thing, there is a difference for women. And the student that you mentioned with asking about women in industry, women's brains work differently than men's in general, in certain things. And that's okay. It's what it is. And aren't we lucky that we aren't all thinking the same? And so Dairy Girl Network was formed by Laura Daniels many years ago, Laura and some other people, to address and give a place where, or events, networking, all that kind of thing for women, to get to know each other, kind of compare notes, see how, when you ran into this problem or this situation, how did you handle that? And that's kind of the basis of Dairy Girl Network. It's grown to be an organization that is all across the country. We have these Connect events. They just had one at the Central Plains Conference. We had one at World Ag Expo, one at California Holstein meeting. And it's to bring women together so that they can meet each other and get to know each other, and maybe learn something from somebody else about how they handle things personally, or about different parts of the industry that they maybe didn't know about before. And so it's a way for people to network and get together. We also have programs. There's a webinar series that comes out. There's a new webinar every month, sometimes twice a month. And we talk about relevant ideas and relevant things that are happening, that we can look forward to and learn about. And so that's a great series. We also have a program called Sharing Wisdom, and that's a kind of every once in a while thing where we choose a topic, and then we have several different speakers, and these are all virtual meetings. Sometimes they're live, but most of the time they're virtual. And for instance, I was involved in organizing one about other forms of income on the farm. So there are people who, we know farms that have beautiful places that have wedding events, or just events. And there are people who publish books or paint. Bonnie Moore, she was one of our speakers. Then we have people who are raising dairy beef is a big deal right now. We have people who are raising dairy beef and selling it off their farm, or making cheese or something like that. So if you had an interest in that program, then you would sign up and say, hey, this is what I'm interested in. And we had breakout rooms that you could go to for that. So we've had similar programs with different topics like that, so that it really drills down to what women are interested in, and then we come back together as a group and kind of have an ending thing. this month of May coming up, Dairy Girl Network focuses on mental health. And I know that they're planning 2 webinars for that. And we try to talk about some of it could be the soft things that we talk about on the dairy. But like I had said about staying hydrated and sleeping and all that during harvest, those soft things are important too, so that we all have a balance to our life. And so that's our focus. We do have a Facebook page called Exchange by Dairy Girl Network, and you just go and sign up. Membership in Dairy Girl Network is free. So we also have a website, dairygirlnetwork.com. Either is it .com? Yes, it's, sometimes they're .org or .com. It is .com. And on that website, one of the most important things is the resources page for different links of places, organizations, associations that can help with all kinds of different things, whether it's financial or mental health or just all kinds of different things. So that's what Dairy Girl Network is. We are growing here in the West. It was formed in the Midwest, Wisconsin specifically, and we do have a good membership in the East. And like I said, we're trying to grow it here in the West. And we recognize that dairy women have different roles in different places, and some may be right on the farm. They might be in charge of the farm. The farm may be theirs, or they may be in charge of calves or nutrition or HR or paying bills in the office or whatever it is. But everybody's got a job that they do, or maybe they do all those jobs. God help them. But anyway, Dairy Girl Network is a good organization for women to share information.
All right. I appreciate that.
It's time for our famous 3. DSM strives to bring our customers efficient, profitable dairy solutions. From essential vitamins like HYD and Victus Transition to next-generation products like Biofix, our portfolio is growing as we continue to bring innovation to the dairy industry. Visit dsm.com to learn more about our newest solutions. When it comes to raising healthy animals, you need more than the right solutions. You need the right partner who brings decades of industry expertise and a global team to put that knowledge to work for the advancement of your operation. At Phibro Animal Health Corporation, we are proud to work with you as your trusted partner.
As we wrap up today, we have 3 questions that we ask of all of our guests. And so we'll just go through those 3 real quick. The first one on our list of 3 questions is, what is your favorite dairy-related book or resource? Can be a podcast, it could be a webinar series, it can be a book, something that's a resource to you.
Well, my first thing that I brought into my mind was Feeds and Feeding, which is the old Feeds and Feeding book.
I have that on my bookshelf somewhere back there.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And see, it's close to the top. And I go to that a lot of times. I mean, it's an older book, but that's the first thing that popped into my head. So, I mean, my other more current one, of course, is that resource page on Dairy Girl Network of all the different websites to go to when I'm in need of something.
All right. Very good. So the next question is, what is your favorite book or resource outside of agriculture?
My favorite book is my fictional book is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Yes, and I haven't read it for a few years. I borrowed my copy out. I let my copy out this year, but it's just, I enjoy John Steinbeck. I enjoy the reality that he brings to life and reminds us that things weren't always so easy as sitting in front of a computer and advising people and doing the kinds of work that I do. I really appreciate his writing and his style, and it's just my favorite author of all time. If we want to talk about a book that's fun, so because I'm a writer, I got the opportunity to write a book which is a biography and written as an autobiography. I was a ghostwriter for a lady named Shirley Spork. And Shirley was one of the 13 founders of the Ladies Professional Golf Association, the LPGA. And I have a friend in Southern California who is a longtime family friend, first of Ron's and then, of course, of me too. And she's a golf pro and was a student of Shirley's. And Shirley was an incredible storyteller, just incredible. She would have people she'd go to a conference and after hours, a few people would gather around. She'd start telling stories about Babe Zaharias and, Patty Berg and all these old time women's golfers. And she'd tell these hilarious stories and people would say, Shirley, you've got to write down these stories. So at Nancy's direction, we went to Palm Desert several times, recorded Shirley and her stories. And because I had never heard them before, and I can hit the golf ball, but that's about all I know. And I don't play golf that often, but because I was somebody who didn't, kind of like with the women coming from the city that are learning about dairy, I didn't know that much about golf. So I had a lot of questions that she could answer. She was the first woman to ever play at St. Andrews in Scotland, and was invited there and went on the Queen Mary, go over there to do this. So we wrote a biography for her, and it's in her own voice. And it's called From Green to Tea. And you can get it on Amazon. Nancy and I nobody made any money off of this. All the funds go to Shirley's foundation for golf scholarships for young women. But it's From Green to Tea. And the green is she, usually start out the tee, but her first golf club was a putter. And so that's used on the green, obviously. And she'd play the whole course with a putter and when she was a little kid. But anyway, that's fun. That's just a fun thing. So
that's awesome. I'll have to check that out or put it on my Goodreads. All right. Our last out of the 3 questions is, in your opinion, what sets successful dairy professionals apart from those that are not?
I think that the ability to listen and understand and empathize is the thing that sets people in general apart from others. I've done a lot of talking today, which I don't usually do. I'm usually the listener, and then I try to find ways to help people. But I think that slowing down, listening to people and trying to understand where they're coming from really makes a big difference in how you relate to people, how they relate back to you, how willing they are to listen to your advice and to listen to what you have to say. Because if you don't understand where they're coming from, then you really have no business saying, here's what I think you need to do. Well, who cares? It's what somebody is telling you. And sometimes you have to ask more and more questions. And the more questions you ask, the better you get to know them. And I'm not just talking about how's your dry matter this year. I'm talking about, what's going on with your family. If I know them well enough, of course, what's going on with your family? Are there any issues or problems coming up that I need to know about that might make a difference in what I'm suggesting to you? And so I think that as professionals, we need to be professional. We need to know what it is that is important to the people that we're serving.
I like that. My grandma always says that listening is the most important life skill. So, and we did bring you on to talk. We did not bring you on to listen. So I think you filled that role very well today. And we really appreciate having you on the podcast. Before I let you go, is there anywhere that people can find more information about you or your company or what you're up to?
So our website has been on the background there the whole time. www.sealprosilage.com. And that is Seal Pro is our brand. It's our family's brand. And so that's where you can find out product information and that kind of thing. You can learn about bananas and how they tell us about silage film. You can learn about our 5-point quality control program that we've set up that we're very excited about. And then if you're looking to find out information about how to make silage and how to be safe around it, there's a link on sealprosilage.com, but it's connoragroscience.com. And we have some other products that we also represent there. So that's kind of our umbrella. And then Seal Pro is our brand. So there's a lot of silage information there, silage safety videos, videos of putting cover on, all that kind of thing that can help you. So I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm not on Facebook anymore because it just took way too much of my time. I do scroll through Instagram now and again just to look at jokes and that kind of thing and things my kids send me. But LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach me. Or my email is simply Connie, CONNIE, at connoragroscience.com. And it'll help you remember Connor is CON for Connie and Ron spelled backwards, just because it was the easiest thing to put on the county paperwork at the time we made the business. So Connor Agroscience.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Connie, for all of that today. It was always great to talk to you and appreciate having you on the show.